corruption in the system. Our Katie Solt joins us now live again. Katie, you sat down with the mother. Why has she filed the complaints?
Wendy, I spoke with Shannon Baskin and her lawyer, and they both say there are several instances of an abuse of power when handling the custody case, but the biggest flaw of all to Baskin is that Judge Roper awarded custody of her daughter to an ex-boyfriend who had no biological or legal ties to the child, and she wants to know why.
What matters is what is right and what is wrong, what is just and what is unjust. And what is just is to have my daughter be with me.
Gary Hill has never been a stepfather to her. He's never been an adopted father, and he's not her biological father. They have no legal relationship whatsoever.
A child taken from her mother and placed with a man she barely knows. A ruling that Shannon Baskin and her attorney are still trying to wrap their heads around. Judge Roper was the presiding judge in Shannon Baskin's custody battle, and Baskin's attorney says in the final months of the case, there were flagrant violations of the law when Judge Roper was on the stand. In a complaint filed with the Judicial Qualification Committee, Briley states that Judge Roper would not release audio from a temporary hearing from July 2014 where the transcripts did not match what actually happened in the courtroom.
He's sitting here saying, okay, you have a concern that the audio or the transcripts might be altered. Well, you want to exonerate yourself. You want to give exculpatory, say, oh, sure, here you go. Maybe there was a mistake. We're not expecting him to be perfect.
Another example Briley cites in her complaint is, quote, the court goes on to advocate for the defendant, making excuses for his domestic violence conviction.
Judge Roper comes in the interim order playing defense attorney regarding the proceedings that happened in 2007 during Mr. Hale's plea hearing. The fact that Judge Roper is coming in and playing defense attorney and justifying that, no excuse for it, none.
In the interim order, Judge Roper states, quote, Baskins claims to be the victim of long-term domestic violence at the hands of Hale. There is no evidence of this contention except one incident in 2007 when Baskin was pregnant with William. Hale was arrested for family violence battery. Hale entered a no-low plea to a reduced charge of battery and was sentenced as a first offender. Judge Roper goes on to say, quote, the court finds that Hale was most likely acting in self-defense, but in anger handled Baskin roughly. These photos are of the bruises Baskin suffered to her back in the incident Roper found to be a self-defense situation. The final order granted Hale custody of the 3 children, including Baskin's biological daughter, citing Hale as the father.
Roper names Gary Hill all through it as her father. I thought father meant biological. I thought father meant stepfather. I thought father meant an adoptive parent, not an ex-boyfriend.
Also in the final order, a gag order issued by Judge Roper for all parties, preventing all parties from talking about the case for 11 years, specifically on the form suspicion that Roper altered transcripts. The gag order says, quote, plaintiff, defendant, and their attorneys are hereby restrained and enjoined from putting, placing, or causing to be placed any allegation that any transcript in this case has been altered upon or in any social media, website, or other public medium, or speaking or corresponding with any print, radio, television media about any such allegation. Briley has challenged the gag order in federal court and filed the petition on April 20th. Before the custody was granted, Hale owed Baskin a total of $12,299.37, an amount that, according to Judge Roper, Hale no longer had to pay to Baskin after he was granted custody. In May 2015, Baskin and her attorney filed an appeal of the permanent injunction with the Supreme Court of Georgia, and they also appealed the custodial issues to the Court of Appeals. And as Baskin waits for an answer, all she wants now is justice.
When you're a mother and your very best that you could do as a human being is not good enough,
strong, baby, strong.
It'll break you to your core. This is bigger than just Shannon Renee Baskin. This is bigger than my children and my family. This is for all families who have gone through it before me and who are to go through it while I'm going through it and who is to come.
When I called Judge Roper to see if he would respond to these allegations, he simply said, quote, "I cannot talk about an open custody case," and hung up the phone. I also reached out to Hale, and he told me he was not able to talk to me about the case at this time due to the gag order issued by Judge Roper. We will continue to follow this story for updates, and for more stories on the Augusta family court system, head over to WFXG.com and click under the news section. We'll be right back after this.
Okay, what I'm going to do is show you what's going on. Now, this is in a different state, but this operates along with this crew. They're wonderful people. And I got into some issues here in Wayne County, Indiana, over a then 4-year-old grandson who apparently had warrants put on his head by a group of people, one of them being a Title Abstracts company, a Sean Sorrell notarized document stating that my daughter was married. She has not been married, and they took the grandchildren's social security numbers, and nothing has been done to date. As a matter of fact, there's been criminal acts to date. Judge Horn, who you're going to see in just a moment, allowed police would not take the identity theft reports. We had to go to the federal level. They don't take any reports. My husband and I pay taxes. We've been hardworking our whole life, and we're law-abiding citizens of the community. Besides that, I'm a woman. I know who I am. They need to know who they are. And I want to show you the judicial mill. They're talking about the budget in 2012. This is before I discovered the fraud. But Shannon and Katie, this is the way these places operate. You're going to see something that probably was never meant to be seen. This is before they knew I knew about the fraud, so they felt very free to come in and talk about issues. So this is July the 24th, 2012. And there's going to be some judges come in for court. I'm not saying all the judges do it. They're going to talk about a system here. And this system's operating in Georgia. They're sharing cases between the federal and the state at this point. Nobody's keeping an eye on the judiciary. And I'm telling you, this is absolutely, here comes, this is court services. There's going to be some screens that are a little bit messed up. This is Eric Coulter. He's going to leave. He's with the health department. But after this, you'll see them talk to the judge. This is the Wayne County, Indiana Common Council and Commissioners, Wayne County Commissioners, approving the budget for the year 2013. This is in 2012. The meetings drastically changed after I uncovered the fraud and started reporting it. Because I was getting no help locally, I had no choice. Had the police taken my report and did their job by a taxpayer, you can't treat your taxpayers this way. You won't have any income to operate government, folks. You can only operate off of fake identities so long. And they want the children. There's a system of juveniles at operation here that don't really exist. And what happens when they have juveniles in the system or any kind of family violence, they get federal grants for that. The county does, and so does the city and the state. They apply for federal grants that are paid to them. And in addition to that, the child support that was dismissed, basically, there is still a warrant for that, and somebody's actually committing securities fraud. With all of this, every single page of a court case, they have a caseload, and they're duplicating identities, and you will see the judges talk about it. And I will point out the judge that did this to my daughter. The other judges, I've seen a couple of them, and I tell you that I didn't see the behavior I saw out of this particular judge. I'm going to point out, and I will point it out as I go along. Here we go.
Speaking for my staff, and I think
Let me turn that down.
tell you the same thing. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric.
I think you should do that.
Okay. About 5 minutes ahead, Corey's here. Okay. Actually, come on in now.
judges and probation.
Court service.
Corey George.
33.
Former quarterback.
Where's the hot seat?
Got that in, boy.
I got it.
You joined us.
Got you guys with me.
Oh, you did? That is fine.
Services starts 33. 33 now.
33.
Yeah.
Hi, Judge. Hey, Judge. Hello. We have another judge? No? Okay. Oh, he's still in court. Okay. Corey, I want everybody to understand the budget's not set when you leave here, so
Yes.
there could be some changes. Could be other questions along the line.
And Judge Todd was expecting to be here, but he's actually still on the bench, and he needed to finish that up. So he may come in, but he may not. And Judge Colbert was not available either.
Okay.
This is, they've identified him as David Jones. I don't know him. This is court services. And there's going to be a Judge Horn and a Judge Delahanty and Judge Todd. Judge Colbert is another judge. But Judge Horn is the one that I've had experience with. And so has my husband and Gabriel and Denny and Carl. We were held in the courtroom as audience members in my daughter's case while he allowed a director, Tammy Lynn Ortman of Lewis and Capps law firm, to run a fake mortgage through the case and prosecute her wrongfully. And they absolutely have committed crimes and abuse of power, fraud upon the court and fraud upon the personam, and nothing has been done to date. And this was discovered in 2012, and it is now October 2015. And this is why there's a mill going on. You're going to see him talk about several things, and I'm going to play this. And thank you, Katie Solt. And Shannon will send this to Katie so she can see exactly how they're operating down in Georgia, because they're doing it all over the place. This administration we have is absolutely crazy with power. They've abused their power, and you can't have judges giving testimony from the bench. That makes them a witness. They need to be questioned as to their financial interest. I'm about to show you.
They did go ahead and put in for raises.
Yes, on the court services budget, the judges each just felt that that was imperative for their staff to advocate on their behalf. And of course, the group here knows that raises had not been given for some time, so they just felt like that was an important thing to do on behalf of their staff.
And that was calculated at what? 5%?
5%, yes.
Just for clarification, this court services record here is only for Circuit Court, Superior 1 and Superior 2. Correct. Superior 3 has a separate one because they're a totally different type of court. So just clarification for...
Yes, I believe this is the second budget cycle of the combined court services budget.
Right. Seems to be working pretty good. Why you run a little short on some funds?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the intent of it, was because there are a lot of uncertainties with expenses for the courts and trial prep and appeals and various natures that save time on your part and their part on moving money around and appropriating or reappropriating. And I guess just for clarity, are we going to go through each item, or did you kind of lead us through that, or ask questions as we go?
Ask questions. Go right.
Okay.
I see you've got increase there of 8,000.
Did we have to transfer some this year?
On 2247, yes, that's an increased cost there for Westlaw, and that again is just an amount that is unknown from year to year. So just an increase in that service.
Well, actually, we're on a 3-year cycle. So we try to keep the Westlaw account for the same amount for the 3-year cycle. We sign a 3-year contract. Okay. Our cycle was up.
This will stop in a moment. I've already done this several times. But this is, you can't see him yet. You'll see him again. This is the honorable This is, because this is the deal. You're supposed to use the attorney license name. So it's H-O-N, period, Gregory Alton Horn, that operates Superior Court 2. And in my daughter's case, it was 89D02-1209-MF000343. This is the judge that I've had experience with, actual experience, and he actually held all of us wrongfully as audience members and had us watch what they were doing to my daughter, a young mother of 2 children, and one of the children has 97 warrants under his social. They built a warrant system here in this city where they'll write traffic tickets, etc., and make an identity. The title abstracts is owned by is housed with the county and city attorneys, and they backdate the Alta title policies in potential buyers' names by a number of years, taking it back to a former foreclosure, let's say. Then that makes the buyer the seller at the closing table. Then they take the identity and have that person maybe take a dead veteran's property and quitclaim deed it, or they'll take a warrant for child support, and they'll use it behind the scenes to come in as an heir to that property and take the property, and the city and county are actually the investors on these properties. Then they hire servicers like J.P. Morgan and GMAC and various servicers to collect mortgages, and this is all fraud. It's a mill. They're operating a mill, but this is about children. So this whole thing's about children, but when we go back to him, just watch him, because I know from experience what this man has done. And that's being handled. I want to show you, Shannon, and I want to show Katie.
And so it is what it is. We get increased to whatever it is. We're virtually down to no books. We have virtually no books in the law library at all. It's all Westlaw, when we're all on Westlaw.
And I can vouch that there's not really anything that you can do from it. I mean, they just set the price, and it's a monopoly.
I mean, I've tried to negotiate with them, tried to get them down. I told them you guys were meanies, and it didn't work.
The next increase is in contractual professional services.
That is the services of 2 guardian ad litems that provide the service to the court, and those are 2 contractual folks.
And our employees
they're not. No, the guardian ad litems were not directly employed by the courts in the.
No, they're contractual employees, and I would say for the last 2 or 3 years, I think if you look, they have been returning about 60% of their contract costs. In other words, we charge for their services, so we return about 60% of their costs.
They charge for their services. So Shannon, when you were charged for the guardian ad litem, they are contractual guardian ad litems, and even if they're employees, they charge you an exuberant rate based on what they pay them. They charge the parents for the abuse of power of these guardian ad litems, who oftentimes, you've seen what's happened in Georgia. So these guardian ad litems have great power to make or break a person. So they charge you for that, and they return about 60%. Now he's going to admit to a few other things in a moment, such as the state board doesn't get what he has in his coffer. They're doing CAFR funds, and they're running all this through the pensions. So in the city, I'm from Richmond, Indiana, in Wayne County, Indiana, and you're in the Columbia Court under Richmond County in Georgia. They're all tied together because the federal and state judiciary did a case management plan marrying like cases. So through the key sites like Westlaw key citation, that means a literal warrant. So with the fake identities of these children, I found, and I happen to have the children with me. However, they have hijacked their identity. They're sending them to various people in different counties, and this one man has like 8 foster children that I happen to know. 2 of them are from my daughter's home, their identities. He's collecting payments from the state of Indiana for welfare when those children do not exist. The judge over in Vanderburgh County then changes their name, and everything's confidential under the juvenile system. They're going to talk about a 4D court. That's the support court, I believe, and that's a separate court. This judge won't, but he is going to admit that the state is not seeing funds, which means that I need to know if he's got a W-9. If he doesn't, I'm going to give him one, and I want to see the 4490s that he's required to file with the IRS, because all one has to do is the CAFR funds, which I'll do after this, to show you how the city keeps the money hidden from everybody in the county. And this is what they're operating and how they're doing it. They are selling us like livestock. And you happen to have a live woman, young lady, that has basically been sold for some bond on a warrant, if you will, on unpaid support that they have now hijacked and they're using, plus the domestic violence fund. And that's talked about here as well. So I'll try to be quiet, let you watch it. But this is this Judge Horn of Superior 2. And he's been running this scam for quite a while. And it's not only him, it's several other attorneys. And if anybody wants to look, it's under Carol Keihn, K-E-I-H-N on YouTube, Public Official Corruption. And there's the absolute proof of all these documents to what I'm saying is true. And those documents are from the court because I went and got a shadow docket with the help of Deputy Sheriff Laura Roberts and a Treasury clerk as well.
The next increase is in contractual professional services.
That is the services of 2 guardian ad litems that provide the service to the court, and those are 2 contractual folks that are employees. They are not.
Used to be.
No, the guardian ad litems were not directly employed by the courts in the.
No, they're contractual employees, and I would say for the last 2 or 3 years, I think if you look, they have been returning about 60% of their contract costs. In other words, we charge for their services, so we return about 60% of their costs.
But again, this is based on it's time to give employees a raise. They're contract employees, but you built in a raise basically for them as well, right? Okay.
That's a 5%.
So that's Judge, one other question. When we had a conversation not too long ago, I can't remember who it was, but one of you at least expressed some concern about being able to track expenditures for reporting.
Right.
Is that something that you've been able to work out and live within this structure, or is it something that
it's an ongoing process that we're going to have to try to work through? These reports don't match up with the state reports.
Right. So, just as a matter of information for everybody.
These reports don't match up with the state reports. This is in July the 24th. This is on July 24th, according to this broadcast of 2012.
It may be that over time, if we can't get the state reports to fit within our budget structure, we may have to make some tweaks to this to allow them to be able to track each individual court's expenditures for the reports that they have to do for the state.
I might add, I did attend a courts administrator meeting on behalf of the judges a month or 6 weeks ago, and there's an ongoing effort at state court administration, because they recognize that across the state, to work on that as well. The magnitude of it, I think, is much more than just realigning numbers. So it is an ongoing project that they've taken on as well, so there might be.
I'll include the link. So he's basically stating the state knows this is state courts. So when you go to Georgia State Court, they already know this. It's the same in Georgia. It's the same in every state, because they're feeding it up into the federal through the federal state case management plan.
Some technical assistance, that their reports is kind of maybe a compromise between the quarterly reports that the courts do and kind of the systematic reporting.
And I guess I just want to make clear that as we made some of these changes for the sake of efficiencies, we certainly didn't intend to create any additional work for you guys. And so if it comes to pass that we need to make adjustments, please don't hesitate to bring those up so that we can talk about them and work out something that works for everybody.
Okay. Anyone have any other question on court services? Superior Court 3.
I thought that looked like mine, Gary.
I'm sorry. Good eye,
Same thing as far as the budgets. There's just the same request that the other gentleman made.
I don't know this gentleman personally, but I've seen him a couple of times. He's always been very pleasant. So it's Judge Delahanty, I believe is his name, and he's in the Superior Court 3, and he's going to and he is in charge, I believe. It's a lot of the minor cases come through him, the minor children. So he's going to speak specifically to the juvenile system and his knowledge of this, and he's going to say that the state mandates the juveniles and actually pays the courts ahead of time based on a quota. This is damning evidence. And they quit doing this after I discovered the fraud locally. They didn't want to publicize much, so they cleaned up the act quite a bit. And I'll include the links at the bottom of the page of all of this.
Same thing as far as the budgets. There's just the same request that the other gentleman made for their staff on the top section there. The only other increase on that page looks like his reference books, which just drives me nuts. But when the legislature does these massive overhauls of things, in particular the juvenile code or the civil code, you get a new book, and like it or not, there's no trying to whittle them down on how much the charges are going to be. They just send you a bill. Here's your book, here's your bill, and it's a monopoly. And it seems like we always run short in the reference book, so I just asked Corey and Bob if they would just go ahead and build it in up front instead of making have to transfer towards the end of the year type situation. I think we're living well within our means on the supplies, the other supplies though.
Anybody else on the other items?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other yellow marks next? There's a little bit more to that budget. No. Okay.
No yellow on that page? All right.
No yellow.
Made it too easy for you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
I went to yellow because that's caution.
I feel like I've accomplished something by not getting any yellow marks. That's good.
Again, referring back to the conversation we had several weeks ago, one of the issues was the sound system. I believe it was a recording.
Judge, that was in your area, wasn't it? He's having the horn, yeah.
Yeah, Rich has been working with us too on some microphones to help supplement what's already in place. And he knows more about it than I do.
I raised that question because I don't see a capital equipment request here.
We did not.
Is that? Have you guys?
Well, we're not that far along in it really yet, and I know in your case that you were having a lot of problems with. That's kind of been a continuing problem in the courts. For some reason, we can't seem to resolve the sound systems in there to work, and I think Jeff will just have to kind of.
That's because there's fake cases running through the courts, and they don't want a sound system, and they don't want to give the sound, the video recording or the audio. They have it available. I've seen it. I've seen the discs that are in the CCS, the clerk of court summaries, and there is a sound system. Although they'll say here there is not. There is a sound system, and the judge is going to talk about how he doesn't know what they want exactly yet, because there are many pretend cases going on here behind the scenes. There is a judicial mill, and they are selling our children. It's kids for cash, except they're paper doll people. And this allows the flow of immigrants and immigrants' children through the system under assumed identities.
Work on it, and right now we really don't have anything to give you.
Okay. I think IT might have thought that it might be there.
Okay. Well, let's not
it's got to be
let it fall
resolved
through the cracks, because that was a significant concern. So we can address that when you're ready, rather than through the budget process. We can do an additional appropriation if we need to. But
We just don't even, like it's been said, we're working with Rich, and we just don't know. At this point, no one seems to know what we even need, so.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments you'd like to make, Judge?
I'm sorry?
Any comments you would like to make?
I think I have a couple of other kind of sub-budgets to deal with.
4D. Got 4D coming up. You got on 4D.
The I didn't have it on.
The CASA budget's really kind of a mixed bag, because the director's salary is paid out of the court's budget, and then the money that you're seeing here is money that the state is nice enough to send us every year, and it's based upon some very bizarre formula that basically, when you boil away the fat, it's how many juvenile cases you ended up with in the year prior, and they'll send you money. It's not really, I don't think there's a grant, because they don't have to apply and report back, but it's money that we have to match, and we do that through the salary that Ms. Bowen is paid as the director. And then what you're seeing up here is how the state's money is they kind of split up. That's the wrong one. That's 4D. We moved on to something else.
Do you want CASA?
Yeah.
No, that's okay. 4D.
I'm sorry. I was.
Then Union County takes something into.
Thank you, Al. You're right. We joined teams with Union County to kind of show some efficiencies, and so the money that they get, which is far less than what Wayne County gets because their case number's smaller, they basically send that to us, and then part of Karen's salary is paid out of Union County's state funds as well.
They said the state was sending money, but we can't handle it, so we came here one day, Judge
Cox.
Do it. We'll do it. We'll give you the money and you do the job. Something.
Yeah, and it's worked out well for both counties. It really has. Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
4D.
And that's a pretty.
4D then.
39 hours.
Yeah, that interpreter one kind of falls underneath too.
Yeah, that's it.
we just approved that.
Yes.
I didn't see any yellow on that one. That's why I wanted to go back to that.
They're talking about an interpreter for people who can't speak English, which means immigration. Now, this is enough. I'm going to include the links to this, and I'm going to send this to Shannon, and I'm going to put it out. So this is how they operate behind the scenes. I can also include a CAFR fund, but this is absolutely what's going on in all the courts across the land. This was in 2012, and they went back to like the year 2004 in the conversations under this, to the year 2004. They went back many years, so this is how they're operating a mill, and the lawyers will always have money, and none of the lawyers that are good can go up against them because they won't have a career. But I tell you this, and these clerks, there's a clerk there in Georgia, and I tell you that they need to grow a set of kahunas and get off of it, because I wouldn't want to work where I had to do such a thing. You have to have some integrity and some scruples about you, and quit acting like it's too much for you. Just because you got in the profession and found out it's as corrupt as any criminal enterprise you'd ever want to be in, it's not the victim's fault. It's not that young lady who's living with a man she doesn't even know. And I hope that this will help you and others like you.